Catholic Community Service. Feed them all. That way. It sounds really good. You know, we'll get 12 people and we'll just pile in our cars. We'll follow you around. Well, you got stoplights and traffic and this and that. So, so we drive around with, like Kyrie and I will drive around, and we hit people on the corners, on the streets. And these are actually, to me, the most vulnerable people because they don't have anybody else to depend on. And so when we pull up, we just help them. I tell my story, I introduce myself, I pray with them, and my truck has this incredible wrap done on it. And like we said the other day, they're waving us down.
Yes.
They see that truck, they know.
Yes, they know
that this
you.
is a person. And so, but what I tell people is that, you know, we're sharing hope because God gave me just a little spark of hope. Before I was hopeless. And a lot of the people that we see out there, and Kyrie will attest to this, is that a lot of people are hopeless. They've just given up. And with that little bit of that spark of hope, God sent me on this 8-year, I'm almost going 8 years now on this path. And yeah, we need the help. We need financial support, which is really hard to get because everybody's convinced the homeless people are just horrible people.
And that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about perception. And I'm going to interview Kyrie, but perception is a big thing. Narrative and perception is a big thing.
We get that off the news.
Yes,
we get a lot of it off the news.
Narrative and perception is a big thing. Everybody think that the homeless community is there because of drugs, and everybody's story is unique to themselves. My mom doesn't like me to do this, but my mom was homeless, and she never did drugs, and she never drank. Just life, you know. You with somebody, it didn't work out, and then you end up in the streets with your kids. You know, so for everybody, it's different. Yes, Pastor Dennis.
And it's not just that. Whenever there is a problem with crime, we hear more crime coming up, then it goes back to the homeless and blame the homeless for the crime.
Yes.
Sounds like someone is.
My mom, I don't know who from Panama is calling me. Oh my goodness.
Push the power button.
No, that's true, Dennis. That's true, Dennis. Is that they do. Every time there's a story up that hits the news, it's like there was a fire somewhere in Tacoma, this 40-year-old business, and they never had problems, and all of a sudden they. And before they had conducted any kind of investigation, had any kind of police report, the first thing they did, the news people said, it was probably from the homeless starting a fire. And it's like, when we watch the news, we get this narrative, this perception that the homeless people are these horrible, horrible people, and they're starting fires, and they're shooting each other, and they're robbing each other, and
it is narrative. Kyrie, tell us a little bit about you. Your name, where you're from, and I know before the show we talked a little bit, so just tell us your story.
I'm Kyrie. I was born and raised in Montana. My mom was single mom, and she met a man that was 17 years older than her and had 4 teenage kids, and
she had 14 kids?
He had 4.
Oh,
teenagers when he married my mom.
Oh, okay.
And then, so first his sons molested me when I was really young, and then he molested me for a few years. And then my grandfather also, so all the men that were supposed to be there to protect me didn't.
Wow.
My mom wasn't able to protect me because she wasn't honest about her abuse from my grandpa, so it was kind of like a generational.
Yes.
Kept going generationally, like, so it was a lot of sexual abuse as a child, and then addictions, food, sex, weed, alcohol, crack, meth, like, just proceeded along the years.
How do you get here in Washington State? Why you
How did I
came
get
from
here?
Washington State?
I had been smoking crack, which I had picked up from my husband. I didn't know I was smoking it for a while because he rolled it in our joints. So then I found out he's smoking it, and I'm like, hello, let's try that. And I left him a few months after, well, not a few months after that. I left him a while after that, but he's kept my youngest son. And I went off smoking crack in Seattle. And I got to the point where I just didn't want to do it anymore, so I met this guy, and we went down to California, and we got clean off of crack. But then I relapsed, and I cut my arm 6 inches, and told that I didn't want to go home with the guy that I was with, but they just released me to him anyway. And major depression sat in, and I decided that, because I had warrants in Seattle for prostitution, so I decided that, well, I'll just go up to Seattle and get arrested in a heartbeat, since obviously I got picked up quite a few times. And so I stopped in Tacoma to give my mom my belongings, and she just insisted on me staying with her. And so Tacoma became my home. It was like the first place that I actually felt like home in a long time, because I bounced between California and Montana a lot. And when I got here, I started working at like a temp agency. I went into treatment. I got my I started school after that. I had like a good full 3 years, a little over 3 years clean and sober. I got my bachelor's degree. Yeah, not that I'm using it for anything good these days, but I mean, I got a job at an online school after I graduated, and worked there for like 6 years. And that was an amazing, like, because I don't do anything for 6 years. I don't do anything for 2 years. Like, I'm very short-termish. But I had lived for the first time in the same apartment for 5 years during that time, which is like, what? Like the same address for how long? Because yeah, people are used to me changing my phone numbers, my address. I was like, I just have a long address book because I have lots of numbers. So but then I you know, there's always a cute boy that always brings me down. Always a cute boy. And I started smoking meth, and then on top of that, having all my other issues of life. I have a borderline personality disorder because of, you know, the trauma in my childhood. So learning how to cope with that is difficult, because I realized why I lost so many people along the way because of my raging and my temperament and all of that. And learning about what that means in my life has been a learning experience the last few years, especially. And this month actually marks my 5th year as straight being homeless. But I've learned a lot more about myself than I ever thought I would. I've become more comfortable in my skin. I try to not be the typical looking homeless person. I do the volunteering with Rodney to give back to the community that I'm still living in, but it also is a way to just take note of what's happening out there, because everybody that I've talked to has some trauma, regardless if there's trauma. It's all trauma. Abuse as a children, military, they get out of the military, and there's guys out here that are just, they can't even sleep at night. They're a wreck when they sleep. It's so horrible. But the traumas that everybody is suffering out here is just, it's all different. Like, some woman had a head injury, and with the traumatic head injury, she was like professional, made lots of money. Now she's out on the streets like a bumbling idiot because her family can't take care of her, and she's using drugs to, maintain. And like, drugs is the only way to like maintain sometimes out here, just to be able to cope with what you have to cope with. Like, the people that are in encampments are a little bit better off because they have tents or they have campers or whatever. But the people that are actually on the sidewalk, because that's how I started, was out on the sidewalk, and sleeping on the doorways of businesses. And yeah, it's a lot harder than when I had nothing at the time. Like, I really just had the blankets that I could carry, my clothes that I could carry. And you never left anything, because otherwise it's gone, So the traumas that you compound as you're homeless with just being out on the sidewalk, not knowing if you're safe or if your stuff is safe. And when you lose your things, it's devastating because it's like, that's all you have. It's your whole world. And like I've come from sleeping on the sidewalk to being blessed so many times, like ridiculously, to have more than I needed, way more than I need. But I'm lucky and I work for it. I don't just sit by and let it come to me. I'm out there working for what I have, and not everybody's like that. The perception of homeless as being dirty and they're thieves and la 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 la. There are a lot of that. There is a lot of that. But why did they get to the point where that's the only way that they thought that they could be? There's some people that they're criminals because it's the only thing that they learned how to survive that way. And I'm not saying it's right at all because I don't have to steal to make my way out being homeless. But it's what brought them to the point where they felt so low about themselves, so that they didn't matter anymore, that they don't, what's the point? So let me just go steal what I need to get what I need. And that's the part that people don't see, they don't think about, is that guy's a criminal out there, but why was he a criminal? What brought him to this point? I know when I was first homeless, I just felt like I didn't matter. I felt like I was looked at as trash, and I was, it. It was so hard being out there, because knowing that I'm not, knowing that I am a good person at heart, and that I have morals, and some morals, I have, compassion, and I have a conscience. It's like, why are these people looking at me like that? They don't know my story. They don't have a clue who I am and what I've done and what I haven't done. But everybody looks at you like you're just the common trash, and I've had some amazing experiences being homeless. I have had more personal growth. I was on medication before with my depression and mood swings, and I've been more stable being homeless than I have been living in a house and paying bills and all the other crap that goes with that. I'm more stable now than I've ever been. I don't know. I know that there's so many people out there that can't be, and my drug use used to be horrendous. You wouldn't want me to be around. And I'm not going to say that I'm sober now, because there's times, I'm not necessarily sober. I'm a drug addict that has mental health issues, and I'm homeless, but I still don't have to be what everybody thinks I am. And thank goodness that I'm strong enough mentally to withstand the trauma that comes from the people on the out that are still working, and that when they come to destroy a camp, just the backing up sounds of the vehicles coming off the flatbed trucks with the bulldozers, that beeping noise is a panic for me now, because I'm like, they're gonna come, what is that? It's scary. And the compounded traumas that I've had just being homeless, with people being shot at camps. There's a lot of gunfire. There's a lot of criminal activity, but not everybody there is that way, and it's such a horrible
I think
place
living in survival mode.
24/7.
Yes, you're living in survival mode. I don't know. I'm just humble because I want to say that I had a hard year last year, but just listening to you, within you being homeless and still saying I'm blessed and I have more than I ever had, is humbling. It's just humble you, because then you get up and say, what did I complaining about? But taking time for other people when you in the mix of it is beautiful. I don't even know what words, Well,
that's what freaks me out with Kyrie, is it's so difficult to find people to help Sidewalk Rescue out. And it's like, man, Kyrie is homeless. Out of all the people, she's always been there. She's missed a couple of days here and there, but for the most part, Kyrie has always been there. I have a lady who donates 4 or 5 sleeping bags, box of clothes,
lots of stuff,
toilet paper and stuff, and so it's like, but Kyrie has become my outlet for that, because she has a direct connection with the homeless encampment that she particularly visits or stays at. And it's like, it blows my mind that here's Kyrie, the person that should be at the bottom of the list, and is at the top,
and being victim, because you sit here and you was talking, and there's no victim. She's not portraying herself as a victim.
Yeah.
And you being authentic and you're being transparent, I say, yes, I have my struggles. And putting that humanity into everyone, visibility and voice is very important, you know. So how do you guys met?
There was a lady when I first started out, and her name was
Ricky.
And she's a Native American lady, I believe.
She wasn't Native American.
She looked
That's
Native
She
American.
wasn't?
That's what everybody thought.
She looked Native American, but every now and then I would pull up and I would say, "Hey, can I give you some goodies?" And she didn't want any. She didn't want any Jesus, and that was cool. You know, I'm good with that, right? Because it was me, right? But there was a couple times that I got to help her out, and then one of the people that I knew said that the lady that she had been murdered, and I was like, oh my God. And so I had this VA appointment one day, and I heard about the memorial, and I said, well, maybe I should bring some food bags and some water, and there's going to be a lot of people. I always think these grandiose thoughts, right? And it usually turns out to be like one or two people show up. But it's all good. Anyway, I met Ricky's mother, and I found out why Ricky was the way she was. You know, but anyway, I did bring a case of water, and I met Kyrie about a year and a half ago, and somehow, some way, it just turned out that we exchanged.
But she
phone
was
numbers.
in the service?
She started helping me on the street, and I need her as much as I need anybody else. But the thing about it is she's there. She's available. And that's what's crazy is that I always tell people the devil's stolen our time. The most valuable commodity that we have is our time.
Yes.
And as everybody's running around trying to keep up with the Joneses and the Andersons, and they gotta have a swim spa in the backyard, and they gotta have the new car, and so they're out there chasing the dollar, and using up all their time, and they have no time to give. I have people tell me all the time, hey Rodney, I'd love to go out with you, man, just give me a call. So I changed my schedule to open up Saturdays, which is what you did because of Dennis. And so I decided I was going to stick with that, and I'm going to do 2 Saturdays every month and then two Wednesdays every month. And then there's another organization that we help out. And but yeah, so Kyrie has turned out to be a really genuine asset. In fact, I'm talking to her, I don't know if I already said this, but I've asked her to become the vice president of my board. Because she's articulate, she's smart, she's got common sense, and you know, she's homeless, but she's got all these skills and all these abilities that nobody else sees until we step off of our ladder and come down to this level.
Kyrie, Pastor Dennis, do you have any questions, anything to say?
Actually, I just wanted to say the relationship that Kyrie and Ronald have is,
Rodney.
I'm so used to calling you Ron. I have to adjust to Rodney. So, your relationship speaks volumes. I have worked with low-income people for 25 years, not in a primary role, but as a president of a social service agency that did a lot of things for the lower income individuals. And the fact that Kyrie is willing to connect with you and do stuff with you speaks volumes. I have grown so accustomed to churches who use outreach as a recruiting ground. And when we tried to put people into their programs, they would walk away rather than go to the program because that place already had the reputation of being just a recruitment ground. You had to go there. You had to sit through all these services. You had to be. You were forced to do all of this stuff.
People won't do that.
You know, just so you could have a little bit of food on your plate, and that just rapes people of their dignity.
It's just crazy that you have to do, unless you do this, we're gonna do this for you.
Right.
You know, and I don't understand that. Let's forget about the church for a minute and think about just being human.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, just let's forget about that. You know, and just become human. And I think Pastor Dennis, I mean, I'm gonna add a little bit what you said, but you had said so right that the church is a recruiting system where they recruit people and they want to keep them in that bubble.
Right.
And I think we should be more of a service. We as human beings, we should just serve and plant that seed. I think that Saturday we talk a lot about planting seeds. For me, I think the church should see themselves as planting seed. I don't force you. I'm just gonna help you and hear you and see you to where you at.
I'm gonna love
and
you
plant that seed.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's what we should be, not expecting anything from that person. But we have to fill that facility. We have the buildings, and then we have the tithe, right? And all actually with our time too, because they want us to work in the church too.
Yeah.
For nothing,
Right.
you know, really. So all of that comes instead of just looking at Jesus. Did you really look at Jesus' life? He went from city to city.
He was living with me, hanging out with my people, not hanging out with the other people that have their jobs and cars. He was hanging out with me.
What Jesus said to
the
his
seed that we
disciples,
need to plant is that people are valued because they are created in God's image.
Yes.
Not because they believe something.
Yes.
I had a friend that I first met out here, and he said, I don't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm killing myself out here or not, because I don't matter. And it blew my brains. I just was like, you matter. We all freaking matter no matter what. It doesn't matter who we are. Someone loves us on the other side of our addiction and all of our pain. There is somebody that cares about us and loves us and that wants us to be okay. And to feel that we don't matter, we all matter.
The lost coin, the lost sheep, the prodigal son. It's always, Jesus said he left the 99 to go to get the one. And that's my mission as Sidewalk Rescue. When I set out each day that I go out with the anticipation of only reaching one person. Just to give a bag of food to one person, to let them know that God loves them, and everything else is a bonus. So if I feed 24 people or 25 people in a day, that's a bonus, because I only started out to serve one person. If one person can just feel love today, that's more. And so that's what we do. We try not to help this one person, and it turns out that there's many other people that follow suit, and they're waving us down the street now. And
and
value as important as food is, as important it is as the basic essentials of living. Value is way more important than any of those.
Yes.
We often send people out to give out food, but they don't give out value.
A doctor asked me what they can do, because I'm open about everything who I am. I'm like, blah, this is what I am. And my doctor asked me what can she do to help homeless people. And I was like, well, instead of, because she donates to the mission, that's nice. But stop and talk to somebody. Find out what brought them to where they're at. Why are they here? What's their story? Like what happened to them to bring them here? Instead of just assuming that they're pieces of shit right off the bat. Stop and talk to somebody and ask them why they're out here. Listen to their story. Let them know that they have a voice and they can speak it, because you lose your voice
and
being
that
homeless.
I see you. I see you, and I hear you. I see
you.
Matter. Yes, because
that's
what people want. You want to be seen and heard.
Because you become invisible.
What's really cool about when you and Dennis went out with me this day is that I notice a lot of times, and I think I mentioned this to you guys, is that a lot of times I go out and the people that I'm with, they only want to go out for an hour, or they got something else planned, and it's like, no, this is what I really want to go. I want to go out for 3 hours, and I want to talk to Joe the boxer like we did.
Yes, we did.
You know, and I want to talk to the guy who's digging in the garbage can and finding out, like Kyrie says, what brought you here? What's your story? You know, and sometimes.
Oh, that lady that was a little bit rattled.
Right.
And I was really cool to see your demeanor and the way you know, because a lot of times people are frustrated and they have their mental issues and they become so aggressive, and you might just, you know, but he just listened to her. He just step back for a little bit and listen, and we listened to her.
That's sometimes that's all you need to do.
And then she came down, and then she said she was sorry, and then, you know, I gave her a hug, because that's probably, she just needed to take all that frustration out, and she just needed to be heard and listen.
Yeah. I had a lady.
Yes.
I had this gentleman. He was filming us or something. I don't know what he was doing with me on that particular day, but this lady or this man, I can't remember. I have a picture of him on my thing, and they're walking off in the distance, and you really don't even know it. But she's screaming and hollering. It was like Legion in the Bible, screaming and hollering, and I just walked up and I said, "Would you like a bag of food?" And it was like the calming of the sea, you know. And he goes, "I don't know what you did, but you should have seen what you just did." And the person just took the bag of food, and they just calmly walked off across the street. And so sometimes I look at my pictures, and I was telling Kyrie just a minute ago, I would look at my pictures sometime and just cry, because it's so sad that these people are out there. And we're talking about trauma. The worst trauma of all is that they're homeless. Just being homeless is a trauma in itself. Having to dig in a garbage can. I was 13 when I first experienced homelessness, and I wasn't homeless like for years and years and years. I would probably go from week to week to week, you know, because I was being chased down by the police because I was living in a boys' home and they didn't want me to run away. But I remember going through garbage cans. I remember stealing out of stores just to eat. You know, I remember breaking into houses at night or businesses at night. And that's the way I grew up. I grew up having to steal in my own home just to be able to have something to eat. So those habits took me further down the road, and it wasn't until I joined the Army from an armed robbery that changed my life. And then I met my wife, and she's been with me for 40 years. And she supports me. She supports me 100%, and she tells me, she says, "Honey, God's got this crown for you waiting, man." And she's always inspiring me and telling me I should be proud of myself. And it's like, but then there's the other sector of people that look at you and it's like, you help the homeless, and they look down on you because of that. And that's really sad.
Kyrie, I wanted to ask you, Pastor Dennis, you had something to say?
No, go ahead, ask the question. I'll say something.
Kyrie, you said your doctor, she asked you how she can help. I don't want you to step on your glasses.
I see them down there. They're always all over the place. You never know. I step on them all the time. They're Dollar Tree, thank goodness.
I know, I have a lot of those too. You know, we interview, and I think, Chris, you remember when we interview the mayor of the city, Victoria Whitter, and she was kind of shying away a little bit about the homeless because it's big. It's a big thing.
It's huge. It's monstrous.
And I remember telling her, I know I'm gonna ask you, but it's not a yes or a no question. It's not one question, because it's very complex, because we're dealing with people, and people are complex. It's a complicity. We just complex.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not one solution. It's not just one way to do it.
It's a mess.
But you said you asked your doctor how, because we think just throwing stuff for people and just giving them stuff, right?
You don't
so for you, what is you was to sit here and talk to Governor Hensley, or the mayor of Tacoma, and she asks you that same question, how can we help? What would you tell her? This is they're doing the tiny homes. We know we talk about the tiny homes.
The thing is that the people, when I learned the first 9 months of me being homeless, is that I couldn't leave the 3-block radius that I was in. I slept on the sidewalk, behind the building. I couldn't leave that 3-block radius to make it down to community health. And it was on the same bus line. I couldn't get on the bus to do that. I couldn't leave that space comfortable. That's where I feel safe. Today, when I don't have anywhere to go, I go to that same 3-block radius, knowing that it's not a safe place. But for me, that's where I felt safe when I first became homeless. And people get used to where they're sitting, and that's where they become comfortable and they feel safe there. Ricky that was murdered, she felt safe out in the open where she was murdered. She was murdered in exactly the same way she feared. That's awful. And there's so much, there's so many things that are just so, the police don't know what to do. Nobody knows what to do with this. Right now, I got kicked out of my camp a couple weeks ago. Blessed that I have a van to live in, barely. But, so I have that to go back to. But people get kicked out of where they're at in their camps. They get sent back out to the streets. Well, then they clean off the streets. They get sent back out to, there's no stable little places.
Yes.
Yeah, they open the little tent cities. Services are not that available. I made the new tent city that opened up on 34th and Pacific.
Pacific, yeah.
I got a tent there. I had to get rid of my camp, pack it all up and everything, so I wasn't there continually. But the stuff that I had put in there before I even came back the first time was stolen. There's a guard outside the gate that's not even checking people's names at 11:30 at night and who's living there and not. The people that were to be there to service us, their office is facing away from the tents. They dismissed almost every question that I had. They didn't have time to talk to me. That's not how you bring services to people. I don't care if it's just new and starting up and you haven't got all the wrinkles wired out. There's two things. Those people should have listened to everything I had to say, and the security guard should be checking on me. I didn't go back. I'm not going to go stay there. Services aren't as easy and wonderful as they think. An officer told me, because I scrap for my money right now. That's how I scrap, and blessed that some of the businesses extra bless me. So, but where was I going with that? But people are it's hard to find a place to go and where to get that stuff. My boyfriend this week, we were sleeping in the van and we heard some weird noises, and his whole entire everything he owned was burned to the ground this week. That's a devastating trauma. When you lose your everything, that's a trauma. Having to get out of your camp to move to here, to get pushed to this one, to move to here. You're pushed around in circles, and nobody knows the solution for that. None. Some camps would definitely take care of their garbage if there was a dumpster there. They would use the porta potties correctly. There are a certain few people that don't. We can't, and they mess it up for everybody. And that's the sad part. But I know that the encampments that I've been in, if we had garbage service, we'd use it. I'm we really would. So it's just services have to come out to the people because people can't go to the services. They're too busy on their day-to-day survival mode. You're surviving every day. How am I going to eat today? How am I going to do this today? I want to shower today. I don't have no clean clothes. I don't have, my boyfriend has no clothes except for what's on his back right now. So it's that's your daily trauma is just another day of what can I do to survive.
No,
can I ask you, Kyrie? So you're saying that there's no garbage service at that camp?
Not all camps, not well. I don't have a camp now because my camp was cleaned up. My portion of the camp was cleaned up. People are supposed to be out on the 12th, or they have 12 days from probably 10 days now to leave the one stretch of camp that I was at, and there was one dumpster, but it's right off the I-5, and so it's for the construction and everything, and so people dump in there. I dumped in there, but not everybody does.
Yeah.
But I know that the people that I was camping with in the little zone that I was, it all got kicked out before the rest of the big encampment. We all used the garbage. We cleaned it up and all of that, but not everybody's going to. Everybody's on their daily chase and grind to just stay alive, just to get their basic needs met. I've been in under the 509. I was there before they got rid of it 2 years ago. I don't know, yeah. But
right.
yeah, and we asked, there's Food Not Bombs was an organization that was helping us kind of stay afloat. They would bring stuff down to us. They provided garbage service. They would come help us get rid of the garbage and dump it. So stuff like that was helpful. They, tried to do a big movement, which didn't go very well. But people outside services do try to help us. Like people like this, Rodney comes out and to camps, and I've always said that when people and organizations come out to camps to help us out, like Comprehensive came down, we'll be here every Wednesday. And then all of a sudden they're not there after 3 Wednesdays. That's another abandonment for those people that are counting on those services to be there. People would bring out boxes of food from food banks and stuff, and then 1 week they're not there again, and then they're gone.
And you don't know where they are.
Yeah, and you look forward to, this guy's going to bring us sandwiches on Thursday. The mission's coming out with hot cocoa and cup of noodles like certain days of the week, and you look forward to that. And when that doesn't happen, it's like another letdown from society that they let us down again. They let us down again. And how do you trust people out here? We can't trust them to show up with what they're trying to do for us. We didn't ask them to come out here. They came out. It's hard to be but consistency, I asked.
Well, and I think the biggest problem is, it is like, I don't even know how to say it, but it is like, they're not really going to the root of the problem.
Yeah,
they're just pushing
It's
it
like the
around,
iceberg.
moving it around,
It's
just
like the
moving it
iceberg.
around. It's like you have a pile of stuff and you just take and put it over there. And then when you move it from there, you think, because you don't want to see it. I really don't want to see it. So it's here right now. Let me just take and put it over here. Now I can see it. Let me put it over there. And I don't feel, and again, it's not an easy problem to fix. But they're not going into the root of the real problem. That I'm listening to you, I'm thinking mental health. We are going through such a mental health crisis.
And those are the people that can't get to services, is the people that are having the biggest crisis with mental health, because that's where they feel safe in this little zone, this space. They can't, if their services would come, like Comprehensive was coming down under the 509 consistently for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden they're not there again. Well, then how am I supposed to trust anybody, and how am I supposed to trust people that are going to be out here to help me? I can't get to your office. When the police come down with their outreach team, they're handing out stuff, and now we'll help you get to services. They get you a ride to Greater Lakes a couple times, but then you're like, some people can't get on that bus alone to get there. It's just not possible. And people don't see that, but agencies that can come down, and help needs to come to us, because we can't get out there. And if people, like the last time the outreach team came down, where I was at, they said they'd be back a lot of more times between now and when we had to be left, and I hadn't seen them again. Well, become familiar with us, talk to us, know that we can trust you, feel safe with you going to a service. Like I wouldn't go to another tent city at all, just because that one was so disorganized at the beginning and so messy, and it didn't feel safe to me whatsoever. I couldn't put locks on my tent. I can't put locks on my tent, and I'm supposed to feel safe. I hardly feel safe most places, but like I'm supposed to feel safe in this little encampment that you've built for us as a city, and I'm supposed to feel safe there, but I can't lock my tent. My things are gone. There's nobody watching the doors, nobody watching us. It's like, I don't feel safe there. Like, I'm a woman and I'd be single there. That's not safe at all. And the safety and the familiarity of the people that are offering the services, because it's hard to trust anybody when you're out here in the real world, trusting someone to give your everything to, but to trust somebody that's just coming in out of nowhere, build trust there, build a relationship with the people, because otherwise you don't have anything. But it's pushing the problem and pushing the product. You cannot build anything if you're pushing it.
The thing is that, like I say, the thing that's really cool about Sidewalk Rescue, or me, is that I keep coming back, and I keep coming back. I have really crummy relationships with regular normal people. You call them, you're bothering them, but you know what? When I show up at a homeless encampment, they know my they know my voice.
Yes.
I had a guy smiling like to beat the band, just because he heard my voice crossing the street as I was talking to another guy. You could just see a smile just go, and he goes, "I could hear you coming across the road. I knew it was you." And so we have these really cool relationships. I don't know your mother's name, and I don't know your father's name, and most of the time I don't even know your name, because there's so many names. But the biggest I have a mental health diagnosis as well. I'm schizoaffective. I live off a disability, and so I have time. I have time, and this is how I've chosen to spend my time. But one thing I can say for the mental illness issue, the thing that helped me the most was being committed. They don't do that no more. They don't commit nobody. They had to yank me off the street, lock me down. I couldn't go out for a cigarette. I couldn't do anything. But what happened is they got me on the medication I needed to be on, and they got me off the drugs that I was on. I wouldn't start back with the drugs once I got back out. But nevertheless, they took me in, and they contained me until they could get to the root of my problem.
That was my last job right before I became homeless, was working at a facility like that where they bring people in for their mental health, and they have, legally left in there. It's insane. Just to get someone in there is so much. It has to be specific.
It's a process.
It's such a process, and this person doesn't have time for a process. If you don't help them, they're going to die. Something's going to happen to them. Like my son's ex-girlfriend has relapsed twice and been to treatment. He walked in 2 days after she went to treatment, blue with a bloody nose because she OD'd on fentanyl. It's like she should be committed for a while. She's already committed another accident. Commit this girl for a little while to get her stable. There's no place to get her stable. She needs stability. But it's rough. It's rough to get people into a facility like that.
Pastor Dennis, you had something to say?
Yeah, thank you, Kyrie, for saying the things you're saying. I work for the state of Washington, and one of the things I love about the state of Washington is that they are on a plan to end homelessness. And big part of their plan was bringing people who are currently homeless in to help them figure out how to create the solution. I have a friend who is part of a major driver in the organization that brought about the concept of those camps. That was why I was asking if the camp was not providing garbage pickup. That is really sad. And the fact that they're not letting you secure it is sad. Because my understanding is the idea that they sold to the city was to create these types of safe places,
and
that you
the
could
camp,
build the
those
relationships so that you could introduce them to the services they need.
And that one was those camps, the tent cities. They do have garbage and all that, but they
do.
They did, yes. But like my outside camp, like the one down by the river, that camp, our own little made camp. Those camps don't get served. We can't get anything because they don't want us there in the first place. So why are they going to give us something to cure part of the problem? But a lot of us,
they're not going to encourage you to stay there.
There are a lot of places there's places that people could be that they've set up camps that if they provided some garbage service or some toilet services, then maybe it wouldn't be as bad, and if it happened more often for these places that are set up on their own, that are out of the way, like where I've been at, like under the 509, nobody saw us down there. Nobody knew we were down there. Like people just you don't see us down there. And I was down there for a good year underneath the bridge. And it was, if they would have provided a few services there, then we would be out of people's way. We wouldn't be garbage everywhere.
I don't even like that word that you just said. Out of the people's way.
People don't want to see it.
You are a problem.
People don't want to see it.
Not my neighborhood. We care about you.
Just saying that just hit me kind of.
Well, see, the thing is,
when I was at Church for All Nations, we had a wooded piece of property across the street that we weren't using. And it became a homeless camp. We went in there on a yearly basis and cleaned the trash out, knowing that it was going to remain used as a homeless camp. And I would have loved if the church had embraced that as a refuge for the homeless. But I had to deal with the neighborhood watch community around that kept coming to us and blaming the homeless in that camp for their thefts.
Right.
And I'm not going to say that doesn't happen, because we all know that does happen, but not on the majority level. There's a couple people in each little area that will be that way. That, a lot of camps that are outside.
And that comes with the trauma, and that comes with the survival mode, and it's more complex. And now listening it goes from Pastor Dennis, you saying that you work for the state. It everything is connected to housing. It's connected to health care. How affordable it's. You need mental health. It has to do with money, and how much money the government wants to invest in housing. They want to invest in health care. It has to do with so much stuff.
And even to get the basic health care and food stamps, you have to be able to get to DSHS to get those. And they're not all over the place. Like, what if they had a DSHS van that drove around to camps to get those people the food stamps, to get those people health care, like to get them hooked up into that? That's some way to get them engaged into the services that are out there for them.
Yeah.
That is a good idea.
One of the problems with decamping people all the time is you can't really get to know who's there and why they got there. Yeah. It's not a real solution.
It's moving
it
again. Moving the problem.
I was in Starbucks 4 years, probably 4 years ago. There was 8 sheriffs in there. They're talking about my camp. They're talking about other camps, and they're like, "We don't know what's the solution, you guys." This is what they were saying. What's the solution? We take them from here to put them to here to put them to here, and it's just a revolving door. They had no solution. They had no idea what they're doing. They're just doing what they're told to do.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, so they don't even know what the solution is. I'm sitting here in Starbucks listening to them going, they don't know what the solution is. Is there even a solution really feasible?
But it's with all these different entities that needs to connect, because it's healthcare.
That's the problem. I'm on Facebook all the time, and I've said it 100 times if I've said it once. The system is just broken.
Yes.
We had a gentleman one day. I walked up to him, and I was feeling Jesus on me. I was like, "Hey, man, Jesus said He'll never leave you nor forsake you." I think I told you this story. And I walk up behind him. He's like, he must be at least 70 years old. And he's sitting there in the middle of this encampment right down here in the parking lot, and across from McDonald's. And I walk up behind him. I'm just on fire, and and I put my hands on the stirrups on the handles of his wheelchair, and I leaned over to him and I said, "How are you doing, bud?" And I looked at his feet, and he was sitting there. He had all of his toes amputated, and his bandages were seeping blood. And it's like, here I am. Jesus said He'll never leave you nor forsake you, and here you're sitting in the middle of an encampment where you should be sitting in a hospital room or someplace safe, so that they could take care of you and help you. And this is a 70-year-old man.
But Kyrie was saying something that they want you guys to go to and find the services.
They're not there.
But you're not able to how to get there to get those services.
How do you get there?
The first family that I helped out at a Life Center church, they called me up. It was 9 o'clock at night. The security guard just got through kicking them off the property. I took them, when I first met them, I took them down to the Salvation Army, and I knew one of the ladies that was working there, and I said, these guys, they got an interview today. 90 days. 90-day wait before where are you going to go in 90 days? I called my wife up, honey, no. Because she knows that I want to take them home with me. They got 2 toddlers, and they're pushing around a baby carriage that's got a box of food that I gave them, and there's just no. It just seems like there's no resources to help these guys out. And Kyrie's right. These guys can't get around. Like, we give out bus passes. I buy bus passes with some of the donations that I get, and they'll take them. Oh yeah, you know, you give them to an appointment for a whole day.
And I stack them. I have, you know, he gives me a stack every time, and people that say they got doctor's appointments or they can't get there for this, and I'm like, here's no excuse. You have a bus pass all day today, or whatever day you want to use it. Get that appointment and go. You have a bus pass, or when you get that appointment, come back and I'll have a bus pass, and I give them an option to get there, you know, whatever their doctor's appointments needs are. That, and it's nice to have that. I love that Rodney gets those bus passes because it's helpful.
We give out, and the only way that I give out what I got is because every time, when I first started out, I started out with little booklets from Our Daily Bread. Then it started to be water, and then it was cup of noodle soup and granola bars, and then it was lady hygiene. A lady came up to me down here on Pacific Avenue in Portland and South Tacoma Way, right underneath the bridge, and I was underneath there. I was going to go to anyway, the lady walks up to me and she says, I'm effing bleeding on myself. Oh, God. And ever since then, we've been giving out lady hygiene with wipes so that they, you know, because I think about these things and what can I do to make this better? What more can I do to help? It's like showing up, just showing up. There's a lady with a cat. Well, next time I come down here, I'm going to stop by the 7-Eleven and pick up a bag of cat food so that this lady can feed her cat.
My friend is still starting to take her kids out and deliver, you know, bags of food to somebody, and she made a post on Facebook, and I said, well, you should have your kids color pictures or write little notes, because you never know if you're going to touch that one mom or one daddy that misses their kids and sees that little picture, and you spark something in them, even if it's just one person out of everybody that you go out to touch. If one person gets a little spark that maybe they could get their shit together so they could go be with their kids, you should, you know. So she's like, I'm going to do that. But she's got 3 or 4 little kids that can color pictures all day long, and, you know, and then put those in your bags, because it's just a little something that can spark some hope and love.
Rodney, what it is people can do to help you with donations, what it is people, and how they can get to you and get in touch with you with the bus passes, with the clothes. I know we were giving sweaters that day. We had sleeping bags, all those things. So how people can get in touch with your ministry?
People don't like people to dig in your pocket. They take your money, but I always tell people money is the most flexible tool that I have. I can buy bus passes. I can buy water. I can buy lady hygiene. I can go to a thrift store and buy 12, 14, 16 shirts and hand them out to the homeless. If you give me a box of cup of noodle soup, that's the only need I can meet. But see, if you get, we just got a grant from the Puyallup Indian tribe, and so now I think I have maybe 40 sleeping bags. And usually when I go out, I usually give out 2 to 3 sleeping bags every time I go out on the road. If I'm going out on the road every week, once a week, that means I'm giving out 2 sleeping bags every week, and so I need to replenish those sleeping bags. Finances is the most important one. Get a hold of my website, sidewalkrescue.com. There's a donation site through Stripe. We had some problems with it, but we got it cleared up, we think. So people can donate their money through our Stripe account. If they can't get through to there, my phone number is on there, 253-507-0314. Call me and get my address. You can send a check directly to me. That money goes directly. You know, people ask me, why do you give money to the homeless? Because I relinquish my responsibility. Dennis asked me this. He said, what happened, right? I let them take that up with God. You know, whether if you're going to go out and buy a hit of fentanyl, that's between you and God. But if you're going to go out and buy yourself a hamburger, that's between you and God. And I have to
the same way you say it when you give it to the church. You should say this, right?
Exactly.
People said no question. What happened with the money in the church, right?
I'm a minister. I'm ordained. I had a guy told me I got ordained legally. I've been ordained privately in the church by people praying over me. They said, Rodney, the reason you can't fit into a church is because your church is the street.
It's the street.
My sermons don't last for an hour. My sermon is 3 minutes tops. And I just tell you my story. I tell you how God changed my life. I tell you that it was me, my testimony, it was me. If you can think it, I was probably there. I've crawled along the gutters of hell, and somehow God has seen fit to use me as an instrument to bring love to people that just aren't getting it. And the thing with, but yeah, get a hold of sidewalkrescue.com.
No, with time, because time is a big thing. I like what you said about time.
Honestly, if I had
people want to just come.
If I had the money that I would really like to have, we have 6 donors. We have 6 regular donors, one including myself. My tithe goes into Sidewalk Rescue because I know where it's going. I would go out more. I would be able to do more because my gift is time. I have time on my hands. The other thing is people make promises. Oh yeah, I'd love to go out with you, and I never hear from them again.
Or they get sick the night before.
Right, I have people call me up and tell me they're going to be sick 2 days from now. I'm going to be sick 2 days from now. I'm sorry, I can't come out. And so
he tries to cancel on me.
Or either they'll call me up and cancel 5 minutes before they're supposed to meet me. But I've learned to take that with a grain of salt. But honestly, go to sidewalkrescue.com, get a hold of me through email, through my phone number, through the Stripe account, donate to us, because I cry to God all the time. I say, God, I just want to do more. And it's not like this is going to get me into heaven.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I think I'm going to burn just like the rest of us, right? Either God loves me or he hates me. But so far,
I don't know about
so far for the last 8 years, God has been blessing me.
That would be another show.
I know, right?
I don't know about the health concept.
No, I understand. No, I totally agree. My wife is my sounding board. She says, honey, God's got a crown for you. I got another lady who said they're going to be carrying my crown. It's not all about that. It's just that I love people that much, and it was me who was 13 years old, freezing my tootsies off, no shoes, no socks, in the middle of downtown Portland, as a runaway with nowhere to go, and I was freezing cold, and nobody said, hey.
You guys need to come back. You know why? Because there's a lot of team. And I've seen more and more young people in the street.
I don't get to see that many of those guys. Those guys, I don't see that much.
But there is a lot.
There's some out there. I see people who have been out there for 2 days, and I see people who have been out there for 40 years.
Rodney?
Oh.
If I could encourage you, provide Yazmin a link to a way people can connect with you. Okay, so that after the show, we may not have it now, but we will link it to this show when we repost it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Thank you, Dennis.
Also, I just want to encourage anyone who's interested in homelessness. The primary thing we have to do is stop looking at them as criminals.
Yeah.
We need food to survive.
Right.
We need basics to stay alive. And if no one is willing to provide those to you, can you really consider somebody a criminal who's just trying to provide basic necessities of life? With the Jewish people, they had a safety net that if you had no other way to get food, then you were allowed to follow the reapers that were gathering.
Yes, to pick up
leave the corners. Leave the corners.
Left behind, and the reapers, knowing that someone was coming behind them, would be a little sloppy in gathering their food, so that there was something left for them. Yeah. We have to start thinking that way.
We don't. It's like there's this meme that I have on Facebook. It says, when you get blessed with a financial gift, don't increase your style of living, increase your spirit of giving.
Exactly.
But we use their criminals to justify our not giving.
Right.
Jesus said we'll always have the poor. What we have now is we have leper colonies underneath the 705. We have leper colonies. They're not just, they're sick people from top to bottom. they're broken. It's a crisis out there.
Yes.
And I told Kyrie, the thing that brings me to my knees is, you know what? I don't know how they survive. It's just sheer grit and determination.
Tenacity.
But whenever
we also have to realize that when we force removals, we induce PTSD.
Yeah,
Yes.
we don't. Yeah.
And PTSD just makes things worse.
So homelessness is a
If
crisis.
we're going to
crisis.
fix the problem, don't make them more mentally ill.
Yeah.
Right,
Just
because
do
every
that.
time I get kicked out of my camp, I go through another trauma, another PTSD experience. I go through a little crash in my mental health wise. Like I go backwards, and so every time that happens, I go backwards, and I got to come back forward again and get myself clear in my head again. And not everybody is as coherent as me. Not everybody is
Resilient.
as me. You know, there's some people that just can't handle that more. It's just sad as hell out there.
Right.
But so Kyrie, what would you? Yes, go ahead, Pastor Dennis.
I just want to make one more statement. I'm going to let you talk. We cannot hold people responsible for something they can't fix.
Right.
So if we're going to complain about the litter, then provide a place for them to get rid of the litter. We don't have a complaint if there is no way for them to get rid of, because just living, it creates litter.
Yeah.
There's no way around that.
Yeah.
If you want to eat, there's litter.
The thing is, Dennis, is you hit the nail on the head, man. I've seen people pooping in the streets. I've seen people peeing in the streets or up against buildings, and other people have seen it and they complain about it. One day, somebody told me, he said, "Rodney, you should call the city," and they gave me the number because they had connections with the city. And I said, "Hey, how come we don't stick porta potties underneath the 705?" And they said, "Because it's not our property." See, we justified not to help these guys.
We should be
won't even let
going
them.
after the property
We won't even
owners.
let them into our establishment to let them go to the bathroom.
Go
The
ahead,
509, when we were under the 509, Food Not Bombs came in and they were trying to help do lots of things. They talked to the mayor, and the mayor is like, they asked for garbage cans, they asked for porta potties. They wouldn't give us porta potties because we'll just have tricks and
Drugs.
hookers up in there and drugs, so we won't provide those. And they wouldn't provide garbage service either. And we had people advocating for us as a whole group, and they wouldn't provide anything.
Yes. So Kyrie, we want to close. We have 2 minutes. I want to close with you. What would you tell people about the narrative and the perception about homeless? This is not gonna be you guys' last show anyway, but
Cool.
just close out with you and how the people that are listening or watching can help.
Every one of us has somebody that could be out here, like their son, their daughter, their mother. There's somebody, we all matter. We all have something inside of us that's special, and we begin to feel faded, and we're not that anymore. So let people know that they're not just a piece of shit. Smile at somebody. It's okay. Stop and talk to them. It's okay. You don't have to provide cash to them, but provide something if you want to. It's just
Connection.
amazing. It's just connection
Yes.
with somebody that's
Human
outside of this
connection,
zone.
yes.
And that's important. I think that's really important, is to be able to connect with somebody and let them know that they're not alone. That they matter. We matter. We all matter. And we're not all the same. I'm completely opposite of most of the people that I'm around. I do way different things, and I try to give back. But what people can do is just make a connection with somebody that's homeless and smile at them. Just any kind of little bit connection, just to let us know that we still matter and we're not invisible.
Yes.
Be the good Samaritan.
Pastor Dennis?
I think all of that is brilliant. We have to, our faith has to be more than skin deep.
Yes.
Okay, this idea of personal property, we have to rethink that a little bit.
Protect that, too.
You know, we have made a society that is driven by capitalism. You are only of value as a product, not as a person.
Yes.
And So if you're not contributing, we don't care about you. That has to stop.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you guys. Thank you for being on my show, Siembra.
Thank you for
You guys, thank you for everyone. I mean, homelessness is more. There's more than 500,000 people in the United States living in the streets. So, and today is that person. Tomorrow could be you or your relatives. We are check people that live, and 89% of the people live check to check. So you never know with the inflation that's going on. So when we look at people, that could be you, or that could be your mom, that could be your dad, that could be your son, your child, mental health. So don't stop and think before you make judgments. And I will see you next week here at VT Radio Universal at Siembra. And you guys have a beautiful day. Beautiful Sunday month. I'm kind of a little bit off, but I'm just blessed.
Well, thank you
and
for
my
having us.
heart is full. It's full. This is, to me, better than church. Yes.
Yeah.
So you guys have a beautiful day. Thank you, Pastor Dennis. Thank you, Kyrie, and thank you, Rodney.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you,
Thank
and
you,
thank
Rodney
you,
and Kyrie, for being
and
here.
thank you, Chris.
Bye, Chris.
Bye.
Yes.